1,000 rattlesnakes. Muhammad Ali replying to a comment that not all white people are racist. There are many white people who mean right and in their hearts want to do right. If 10,000 snakes were coming down that aisle now, and I had a door that I could shut, and in that 10,000, 1,000 meant right, 1,000 rattlesnakes didn't want to bite me. I knew they were good. Should I let all these rattlesnakes come down, hoping that 1,000 get together and form a shield? Or should I just close the door and stay safe? I'm Lenny Mana-Hoppenworth, the co-founder and co-coordinator at Indivisible Illinois. Welcome to the Wednesday weekly Indivisible Illinois Community Collaborative. At Indivisible Illinois, we value inclusion, respect, and nonviolence. We believe grassroots power comes from working in solidarity and in coalition with others. Tonight, this call is hosted by the new statewide working group, Indivisible Race, Equity, and Inclusion, or REI Illinois. Our topic is equality, equity, race, and white supremacy. In a moment, I will introduce my co-leads. Right now, I will briefly go over the agenda for our call. First, we'll do an orientation of Indivisible REI Illinois, which will include our mission, vision, and goals for 2022. This will be followed by a fireside chat with Kim and Kelly. Then we'll dig into words we want you to be familiar with. Our aim is to empower grassroots with language related to REI so that we can better work together to achieve our shared goals. At the end, we'll have Q&A. Then we'll talk about different ways for you to get involved with action steps that you can take today. About our speakers, Kim Garnett is co-lead at Indivisible Illinois Social Justice Alliance. IISJA meets on Saturdays at noon to educate voters and advocate policies that directly impact underserved communities. She has over a decade of experience with grassroots organizing at the local level for national impact. She is the social justice lead at Indivisible Northwest Suburban Organizing for Action. Kelly B. is the founder and coordinator of the Indivisible IL9 Anti-Racist Work Group, which meets weekly at 10 a.m. on Sundays. The Anti-Racist Work Group is committed to examining the ways in which systemic racism affects us all. At the Anti-Racist Work Group, we acquire the tools to dismantle racism and use those tools to make a more just world. And now I present Kelly B.
Thank you, Lenny. I guess I can, yeah, well, sure. I don't know, turn my video on. You can see me, not just a little face here. As Lenny said, we're going to start this conversation with talking about who we are, and this, we've got a slide here that says who we are. Indivisible REI is a working group of the Indivisible Illinois Community Collaborative that is open to all activists and organizers committed to centering race, equity, and inclusion into everything that we do. I want to take a note right now and say that we recognize that Indivisible is led by white people and is largely comprised of white volunteers. And therefore, the actions that we are discussing today are aimed at us. And when I say us, I mean white people like myself. You can see my face. I know this is a bold statement that I'm about to make, and it might make us feel uncomfortable, but that is the intent of the work that we are going to do. So I want to prepare us for that. The first time I heard the sentence, "It is not up to the oppressed to change the system, it is up to the oppressor," I looked at that sentence as a white person and I identified my place in that statement. I just want to let that sit there for 1 second. It's kind of a hard thing to say, is recognizing myself as an oppressor in a sentence like that, but that's what we're here to do, and the work that we're here to do together. You can also join our team. This is a newly formed group. If you are interested in helping us to continue leading these calls, our email address is here. It will be again later in the call. You can contact us at rei@indivisible.il.com. Next slide, Kim. This is the purpose of our team, is to build a strong, responsive, and resilient anti-racist community committed to enacting systemic change. As Bell Hooks said, we challenge the status quo of the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. That's a lot. I like it. And we have a lot of goals this year, a lot of personal goals and internal goals, things that we're going to work on together and ourselves. And we have one very concrete goal. So it's right here on this slide. We're going to create an anti-racist action plan for all of the Indivisible Illinois Community Collaborative. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to bring curiosity and we're going to resist fragility. We commit to self-examination and self-interrogation, and we show up. This meeting will be led every 6 weeks by the Indivisible REI Illinois committee. That's us. And we'll be here for a total of 8 times in 2022. Thank you for joining us tonight. Look, we're already 1 step towards our goal with this call tonight. You can mark these other dates down. You will also get communications from us reminding us that they are coming up, but know that every 6 weeks we will be on this call together.
There are many white people who mean right and in heart want to do right, but there are so few. If 10,000 rattlesnakes was coming down that aisle now, and I had a door here I could shut, and in that 10,000, 1,000 meant right. 1,000 rattlesnakes didn't want to bite me. I knew they were good. Should I let all these rattlesnakes come down, hoping that 1,000 get together and form a shield? Or should I just close the door and stay safe?
I think that.
You understand? The Viet Cong are not all bad, but America's still dropping bombs. In Hiroshima, the Japan wasn't bad, but she still dropped the bomb. In Korea, they weren't bad, but they still dropped the bomb. So now I'm going to forget the 400 years of lynching and killing and raping and depriving my people of freedom, justice, and equality, the first fired, last hired, the lowest of low, last respected, and I'm going to look at 2 or 3 white people who are trying to do right and don't see the other million trying to kill me. I'm not that big of a fool, and I'm not going to deny it. I believe everything.
It's time for a poll. So we have a question here that is, have you ever seen or read this interview with Muhammad Ali before? So we're going to leave that poll up a little bit. Ooh, we're getting answers flooding in. I love this. This is the interactive part. Super fun. Okay. A lot of I would like to see. Okay, looks like we're slowing down on responses. I know sometimes it's hard to find the polls depending on the device that you're on, so I appreciate everybody. I didn't warn you there was going to be polls, but there will be more. So it looks like we've finished the poll, and at the end we have it's 21% of us have seen or heard that interview before, and 79% of us have not. So great, that is good to know that we have shared something new with you that you have not seen or heard before. What's next, Kim? Oh, it's time for our fireside chat. I'm gonna start my video. And I guess I'm spotlighted already. You're spotlighted.
There we go. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Kelly.
Here we are.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Kelly, you know, this interview took place over 50 years ago, and Muhammad Ali's response, sadly, is still relevant today. So why is the phrase, "not all white people are racist," used to distract from the real discussion?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Good question, Kim. Next, no, I'm just, that's a joke. You know, I know it's weird on this call. Not everybody knows me. You're going to get to know me. I do make jokes. This is serious talk. And we are here to have serious discussions, but I do also, which maybe that's a deflection on its own. We could examine that at another time, but I want to answer this question. So how is it used to distract from the real discussion? There are a lot of answers to that. I think saying not all white people are racist is sort of the same as saying that's not me, but not me. And it's really separating out the individual from the system. And I think that the defensiveness is in order to deflect from the work that needs to be done to change the system. I want to talk about something that you and I have talked about before, and it's a feeling. I'm not going to speak for all white people, but as a white person myself, I am rarely in a situation where I'm concerned that my behavior will reflect poorly on my entire race.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that's not true for other people. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but we have talked about this before. And that is my privilege, which we will talk about, maybe not get into tonight, but we're going to talk about that eventually. And I do recognize that. So I think that saying that defensiveness of not all white people is the discomfort of being called upon to represent all of your people.
Mhm.
And it's also a way to just deflect from a system that needs to change. And it's sort of a not my problem way of deflecting from that.
Right.
If I say not all white people, that's not me. I wasn't one of the 53% who voted for Donald Trump, of white women who voted for Donald Trump. All of these things are ways to say that's not about me, and it's not my change, which we know it's a systemic problem, but it's not only a systemic problem, it's both. So.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's frustrating. It's a frustrating argument because it completely dismisses the lived experience of people of color. And
Absolutely.
it's an argument that is still being made today in the face of injustices against Black people and other people of color. So what terms or phrases are used today to derail conversation about racism?
I mean, I think it reminds me when I watch that is saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't
Right.
that really made me feel like when he said not all white people, that felt like all lives matter, right?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but why is Black Lives Matter such a inflammatory statement?
Oh, that well, I'm gonna say, I think it's because for all of our country's history, Black lives have not actually mattered, but white people have been able to pretend that they do. And to be faced with that statement, Black Lives Matter, makes white people also face what they thought was true. I'm saying white people, all white people, and I'm not saying all white people. I don't like to use absolutist language. And I do really try not to do that. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for every white person. But systemically, there is a reason that white people are, that we don't want to face the reality that we have dismissed Black lives.
Yeah.
It's hard to face that we're not the good guys, and it feels that way when you start to crack that paradigm open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So during the interview that we just saw, why were white people laughing during Muhammad Ali's response in the interview?
Well, Kim, I think that they were deeply uncomfortable because it's really uncomfortable to talk about this. And that's intentional. Because if we can't talk about it, then we can't do anything about it. And that is a great lead in to some slides that we've prepared. Everybody on this call joined, you got a flyer or announcement, or you saw something on social media with this graphic on it that has some words on it. And what we're gonna do right now, because these conversations are uncomfortable, hard to have, we know that's by intent. So we're gonna talk about words. We're gonna talk about words from that slide. We're gonna talk about what some of these words mean. We're gonna talk about the way that these words are used interchangeably or used as weapons, and how we mean them and what we know and what we mean when we say them. So this first slide is a drawing. You can see 3 people watching a baseball game. They're each standing on a box. And in the first picture, it says equality underneath because they each have a box. And that's sometimes what when we say equality, that is what we mean. Everybody has the same thing. But in the second frame, we see that the same boxes are used to lift up the person who cannot see over the fence, even with the same box as a person next to them. And the person who can see over the fence can see over it without being aided. And this little drawing, there's a lot going on in this drawing, more than even kind of what meets the eye. One thing that's really important about this drawing is that they're using the same resources to give each of these participants the same experience. But the resources are, of course, used differently. There's other versions of this cartoon that has been built upon. This meme is actually fascinating. It sort of has a life of its own beyond what the original person who came up with it and drew it intended. But some commentaries include a third slide that has all of the boxes like through the top of the slide, like stacked up so far you can't even see it. And another person is in a hole and that says reality on it. So that's kind of a cynical view of it. And there's another one where the third panel has the fence removed, and so they're all able to just see the baseball game just standing next to one another, and that third panel says liberation, which I think is certainly something to think about. There are other versions of this where people have drawn it with more boxes or different shaped boxes, which kind of loses the meaning. Sometimes we struggle to, when we talk about equity and it feels like someone's getting something more, but if it's really just, it's actually a division of the resources that we all have. So there's quite a bit going on in this slide. I'm going to take a moment. Kim or Lenny, did either one of you want to say something about this that I did not cover here? We've talked a lot about this slide together, and I just wanted to make sure that I had everything. They didn't know I was going to do this, and now they're like, really? I was just taking a glass of water, Kelly. Okay.
Hey,
So,
Kelly, I'll say something.
Okay.
This is Lenny.
Mhm.
I remember when you brought this cartoon out to our Indivisible group, our local Indivisible group at IL9, and I remember the reaction of the people in the room. We had been talking about it. It was the moment of talking about it in our group, and somebody had just gone to a training and we were going to debrief about it, and we were talking, but it wasn't until we actually saw this that it hit a lot of people. So I feel like a lot of people, the light bulb went off, and I love to see it in that moment. And in this group, as we continue working together, I would love to see more light bulbs going off.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, buddy. I remember that too. Yeah, it was April of 2019. I take a lot of notes. Okay, I think what we have next though is a little poll about this slide. So I enjoy a little poll. I like to make sure everybody's awake out there and, you know, keeping it together. So our question is, have you seen this drawing of equality versus equity before? So I can see that the results are coming in here. And you know, we're evening out. Okay, this one was more familiar to everyone. We have let's see, just finishing up. Yep. We have 55% have seen it, 45% not. So this feels like a more comfortable maybe discussion about equity versus equality using that slide. So thank you for giving me that feedback. I appreciate that. And what's up next? Okay. Oh yeah, next up, we're going to talk about REI versus DEI. And what is REI? Not the camping goods store in this case. Although I just realized, boy, I've only lived in Illinois for a few years and I can't remember if that is a camping goods store here. Well, someone can tell me in the Q&A, or it doesn't matter at all. Sorry, that was just, I've lived a lot of places. So we have, I think most of us have probably heard the term DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is a very broad term that includes gender and sexuality and ability and other things that I'm not even gonna get into or list right now, because we are focusing specifically on one part of that, which is race. And that is specifically our discussion. And if you've heard the term intersectional, you know that these things actually cannot be separated out. But for the purposes of this discussion, what we're talking about is anti-racism. And I read this definition and I thought it was great. It's the foundational work necessary to understanding and addressing systemic racism to create a more equitable system for marginalized individuals, children, and families. So that's a lofty goal, and I appreciate lofty goals. I think we should all have lofty goals. So, you know, again, I feel like I'm maybe missing something that I didn't write down in my notes. You know what? We said at the beginning of this call that I'd probably mess some stuff up, and I am, and it's okay. So that's I lean into discomfort and I don't say everything perfectly, and that's all right. And I want everyone here to feel confident to do that. We have a poll, though. We do have another poll, is whether or not you have heard this term in this context, not in the context of the sporting goods store. So there's the poll. I'm watching it here. It was on another screen for me. So the answers are coming in. Oh, I raised my own hand. Boy. Ah. I see. Okay. All right. Great. We have a lot of responses. And this time we really dug deep. 19% of respondents said, yes, you have heard this term before. And 81% of respondents have not heard this term before. So great. This is good because we are going to get even deeper into our discussion here, maybe with things that we've heard of and maybe things that we have not heard of. What is our next slide, Kim? Oh, yeah.
Speaking of what anti-racists do, how would you define anti-racist for people who have not cracked open this book?
Sure. So I think in order to define anti-racist, I must talk about the more popular term, not racist, which stems from the phrase, I am not racist, which stems from when anyone in this society is charged with being racist, their response is, I'm not racist, whether that person is from the far right or far left.
Right.
You know, across the ideological board, when people are charged with saying and doing something that's racist, their response is, I'm not racist, or some say, I can't be racist. I can't be racist because I'm a person of color, because I'm a liberal, because I have a black friend,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And so historically, the phrase not racist, the identity of not racist, has been expressed by eugenicists, has been expressed by Jim Crow segregationists, has been expressed by white nationalists, even white nationalists who are writing a manifesto to then go and shoot at dozens of people at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, write in their manifesto, I'm not racist. And so for me, fundamentally, we should not be identifying ourselves as not racist when white nationalists are identifying themselves in that way, and eugenicists. We should also be recognizing that it fundamentally has functioned as a term of denial.
Oh, I'm back again. Oh, I have a poll, although I just wanted to comment real quick before I share this poll. That was Ibram X. Kendi. I could have done a little more introduction about that. Didn't I say I was going to mess things up? And look, I did. Who wrote the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, that I actually literally have right here. And I highly recommend for everybody on this call, if you are interested in starting your anti-racist journey, to get that book and to read that book and take that book in, because it is literally a handbook for how to be an anti-racist. So we have this next poll though. We have lobbed you some very, very low hanging, easy to answer polls. So this next one has a bunch of questions and I want you to answer honestly. Have you ever had these thoughts or said any of these things? And I want you on this call, if you've joined us today, you may be on a journey of anti-racism already, as we all are on a journey. And I want you to answer these questions though, if you have ever had these thoughts. So then maybe you see some answers in here that you think, I would not say that now, but I have said that in my past or thought that in my past. So I am going to launch this poll. And I'm also going to go ahead and read these questions out loud. There's a lot here. I am colorblind. We just need to love each other. I'm not privileged because I didn't grow up with money. Some of my closest friends are Black. What about Black on Black crime? We've had a Black president, so Black people are not oppressed. By the way, this is multiple choice, so you can answer more than one of these. It's also anonymous, so I will not be, I don't know who has thought any of the following three, if they just followed instructions or if they just worked harder. If you've thought or heard systemic racism is real and impacts all of us, or if you have thought or said we need more BIPOC individuals to join our organization. So there's a lot there. We're gonna let this go a little bit for a little bit. Lenny is texting me to tell me that I'm not on camera, but my camera is on. So I don't know how to fix that, Lenny. I lean into discomfort. So this is a long poll. So we're just gonna, I don't know, I should have played some music here. It's messy. It's messy up in here with the anti-racist discussions. Okay, it looks like we're just finishing up, and I'm gonna, a couple other people are still clicking some. If you've ever thought that or had those feelings. Okay. And I'm gonna end the poll now. 57. Okay, I do see that 57 of the how many? Well, I'm not even going to reveal these numbers because I'm going to tell you something. Is we're going to talk about these numbers next time we meet. So there is an excitement for you to join us again in 6 weeks to talk about those questions and what some of them meant and maybe what they mean to us. But there's going to be other ways to get involved before then too. So don't worry, it was not just one simple quiz to grade where we're all at. Kim, what is my next slide? Oh boy, did my audio just go away? No, okay, I'm good. Can you hear me? I am not on camera. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kelly.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can hear
thank
you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I got a little like flash that I was disconnected and it was tech messy. So what's next? Oh, yikes. Great. Okay, this is good. We're gonna lean into this. We're gonna talk about white supremacy. This quote here is from a book that I also recommend. Look, as you get to know me, you will know I'm a big reader. That's who I am. I do a lot of reading and I recommend books. See, I have books behind me. It's okay if you're not, there's no judgment, but it's just, that is who I am. So this book is called Me and White Supremacy. And this quote is, white supremacy is far from fringe. In white-centered societies and communities, it is the dominant paradigm that forms the foundation from which norms, rules, and laws are created. And Kim, we can just stay on this slide for a second. Because I want to say, when we hear this term, white supremacy, we might recoil. We maybe think this means the KKK or, you know, burning crosses. But really to understand that white supremacy is a system and that I saw this, this is a quote, although my notes are just real messy, and that it's a web of interlocking, reinforcing institutions, political, economical, social, cultural, legal, military, educational, all our institutions. As a system, racism affects every aspect of our lives. So Kim, could we go to the next slide? So some of you have maybe seen this pyramid before, and maybe some have not. There's probably going to be a poll after this about it, but maybe not. I think we might be done with polls. But what I want to talk about is this pyramid. I want to look at it a little bit more closely when we talk about white supremacy, because what I want us to understand is that the things that maybe, and I know, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about me as we go along. But right now, I will tell you my background. I am a white person, and I grew up in a white suburb, and I was surrounded by white people. My growing up, a white school. I went to a white high school. There were 2 Black students at my high school. I mean, I remember them. It was very, very, very white existence. And so when I thought of white supremacy at that time, when I was growing up, it did mean to me a lot of the things that are above the line here: overt white supremacy, that are socially unacceptable, burning crosses, neo-Nazis, racial slurs, blackface, racist jokes. I mean, those are the things that we knew were bad and were socially unacceptable. But this pyramid, I think, is really important to take a look at covert white supremacy and how that works and what is socially acceptable. And maybe personally, when we look at these things on this list, we might think that's not socially acceptable. But that's an individual feeling. Like, I do not personally think that these things are acceptable. But when we talk about a system, so we're always going in and out, we're talking about the individual, we're talking about our own role, and then we're talking about living in a system. that we do know that a lot of these things on this list are socially acceptable. And we know they are because they exist. And we have not changed them. So obviously they are. Discriminatory lending, English only initiatives, racist mascots. I am talking to you from Chicago, and we have our very own right here on the hockey team. So we obviously that's socially acceptable. Not challenging racist jokes is on here too. And I want to say, as a white person, it can be really hard to challenge a racist joke. It's easy to say that we hate racism. We saw that Kendi talk, but when it comes down to saying no to a friend or a relative or a stranger, that can be really hard. But I also, when I'm in that situation, I remind myself that we are part of a system of white supremacy that depends on our silence. It relies on our silence in those situations to continue and to uphold it. And you know what? Even making a noise like, whoa, when someone makes a racist joke when they're around you is better than not saying anything at all. So as we continue this year, we're going to talk about what's hard and place times that were hard. I've been leading the Indivisible IL9 anti-racist work group for the last year and a half. And a lot of times when people join, they're like, okay, well, what do I say to this racist person? Like, what do I say when it's Thanksgiving and my racist uncle says something racist? Like, I want to know exactly what to say. I want a script. And what I say is, I don't have a script. I just have learning about our own silence and learning about our system of white supremacy. And the more that we learn about it and investigate it and really take a look where white supremacy doesn't want us to look, that we become more resilient in those situations, and that we understand what the right thing is to say or do right then, without having a script to explain, a systemic racism to Uncle Pete. So I want to say, if you're new on this journey, if you commit to it and you join us, you will get better at that. If you're not, and I'm just saying something that you already know, well, it's okay to hear this again too. What's our next slide? Oh, whoa, wait. Okay, we are at the Q&A. All right, I love it. And I see that we already have some questions, and I am gonna look at them right now and see if we have some questions here. Okay, someone has asked me to stop giggling. I appreciate that feedback. Let's see. Okay, here's another question. What does Bipac mean? Okay, that's a good straightforward question. I don't know if I can handle the giggling right away, but I will work on it. I take the note. It means Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I'm glad you brought this up, because this is a term that has evolved to acknowledge the violence against Black and indigenous people, and that's foundational to the United States, and that our country is founded on the enslavement of Black people and the genocide of indigenous people. And so the way that this term is treated is that we're going to separate out acknowledging that a Black person's experience and indigenous person's experience is different from another person of color's experience. Okay. I feel like I'm using broad brushes there, but I feel like I'm hitting it. I rely on Lenny and Kim to come in if I've missed that, but the phrase can feel awkward and we may be tempted to say things like, I can't keep up with all of this, but we can. And there may be criticism of using this term and maybe another term will evolve. But right now in this moment, that is the term that we are using. And it's a messy phrase because it doesn't really isn't super easy to map when you say people of color and then you say people and you're repeating people. And so maybe you'd want to shy away from that. It's kind of like if you say ATM machine and the M in ATM is machine and then you say machine anyway. So I guess this is just another case where I would say we lean into the mess and the discomfort of this term. So if you want to ask me a follow-up question to that, I will I'd be happy to talk more about it. Let's see. There's a lot of socially acceptable is a question, and I wonder if you want to elaborate more on the question of socially acceptable. I think we talked about the white supremacy pyramid and what was socially acceptable. So I guess if you want to follow up, I've got another question of what is BIPAC? So great, I'm glad I got to answer that question for people. Is this slide presentation going to be available? Yes, it is. Thank you for people saying that you can see me.
Also, here's a question, Kelly. What can I do that is anti-racist? It's a question that's in the Q&A.
What can I do that is anti-racist? Well, that's a broad question. Attending this meeting is an anti-racist act, so that is one thing to do. I would certainly, if you are a reader, to read the book, How to Be Anti-Racist. The book is divided into topics, a broad range of topics. I'm going to flip through because, of course, I'm blanking on behavior and space and body and ethnicity and culture. So there's like a lot of discrete topics in the book that you can take one at a time that can help you on an anti-racist journey. When the anti-racist work group started with Indivisible IL9, we read this book together. We took it, I think, 1 or 2 chapters a time at a week at a time. So we really, really slowly moved through that book. And if you are just beginning your anti-racist journey right now, welcome. I would say that is a great place to start. There's also a TED Talk with Ibram X. Kendi where he talks about this. So if you're more of a watcher, it's about an hour long. He is a very powerful speaker. He really just gets to the heart of it. We saw him earlier on the video, and I would say to watch that. You could also join the Indivisible IL9 anti-racist work group that we've talked about a couple of times on this call. We meet Sundays at 10 a.m. There'll be a little more information coming up on how to get involved in that. Although if you go to indivisible.illinois.org, you can see, get more information on that group.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, here's another question. I work for an organization, CPD, and I'm on the DEI committee that relatively refuses to address issues on race per employee relations. How can I, as a Black woman, help them to understand its importance?
Ooh. Ooh. do Q&A, they said. It'll be fun, they said. No, they didn't. I'm sorry. I take my note about not giggling or making jokes. I'm really just thinking about that. That is a really difficult question because you are in a situation per employee relations. So you are restricted on discussing this issue. I guess I would wonder what diversity in that DEI committee means. And I would want to interrogate that with that committee, what the, you know, what diversity means. I feel like if you have a committee that's got acronym, just like we on this call talked about the words that we're going to use and that we are using and what the meaning of the words is, I mean, I think that questioning what diversity means would be the place to go to start. I don't know, Kim or Eleni, do either of you have a thought on this difficult situation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm with you, Kelly. I think that defining exactly what DEI means is super important amongst those that are on the committee, and also what was the intent of the committee in the first place. Because we, on this call, the three of us decided that we did not want to do DEI work. We wanted to do REI work, and that's a difference here. But I understand the question, and it's super hard. And that's the reason why I want to have more conversations among us to see where you're at. Thank you, Kelly, for launching all those polls. They were really helpful to see. And yeah, and Kim, do you have any thoughts on this?
You know, I believe that you really need to start at the top. Start at the very, very top and find out exactly, what is DEI? What is their vision for it? And how is that going to flow down into the organization? Are they going to set a roadmap? How large is your organization? Can you have listening sessions with the leadership so they can understand just more beyond what you think, but bring other employees in together with top leadership and say, let's have a listening session. Listen to what we have to say. And then let's work on a plan together to really map out what DEI will look like for this organization.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I also wanted to, Kelly, just thank that person for stepping into the work of doing DEI in your workplace. And to what Kim said, it's exactly that, like, where is leadership? Because it really does take that, as Kelly has been saying all along, this is not easy work. And it does take someone to, when it gets messy, to get the committee back on track. You need leadership, and everybody can play a role in that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because obviously there's a culture. It's a culture there that needs to change. The culture has to change. So you have to really take a really good look at the culture and have those listening sessions and decide for yourself, are they sincere about this change or not? Yeah. And if they are, move forward, get it in writing, let's get a plan. And if not, take the next step that you need to take to help bring about that change.
Yeah. Okay. So I see some other questions. I'm going to combine two. I like this comment. There's a difference between learning about anti-racism and being anti-racist. Agreed. 100% agree. I did recommend the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. It means nothing if you read it and do not apply it in your work. Attending meetings like this, forming anti-racist work groups on your own, reading the book with someone else and talking about it. These are ways to start to practice anti-racism. There is a lot to it. It's not just read a book, put it down and be like, great, I'm anti-racist. And that leads to another question, which says, what if someone says, ask me if I'm a racist, what would be an acceptable answer? And we talk about this a lot, is, you know, when it, yes, I mean, I am a product of a racist society, an inherently racist system. This is what systemic means. If we don't question the things about our system that we've never thought to question before, we will participate in racist acts and racist thoughts. I'm going to give a very super basic example right now. 2 years ago, I learned that the term master bedroom was named that. This is so silly. If anyone knew this already and you're like, duh, Kelly, I appreciate that. But for me, I was a person who has been doing anti-racist work to the best of my ability for many years, was like, master bedroom. I never thought about it before. Of course, this comes from master and slave. And it is baked into every floor plan, every real estate listing, except for the ones that are being more mindful. And I do see more and more saying primary instead. And that is the term that I use now, is primary bedroom. But that term is just, it's just baked in. And that's just one. I mean, that's just one of many, 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 many. So if someone says that I'm racist or I've said something racist, yes, it's impossible not to be. I just know it, and I probably misspoke today and made a mistake and messed something up, and then I learn and I change and apologize and keep going. So that's my response to that question about being called racist.
Okay, here's another question. On the pyramid, why is the line drawn where it is on the pyramid in the diagram that we had?
You want to go back to it? Yeah, here we go. So the line above is overt white supremacy, which we're going to say is socially unacceptable. And in there was lynching and hate crimes, KKK, etc. And then the line is above what we would consider covert white supremacy. Again, this is difficult to say it's socially acceptable, but these things happen and continue to happen, which indicate that they are in fact socially acceptable. So that's what the line was. Sorry if that wasn't real clear. I don't know about any of these others. Oh, we've got some good resources here for people who want to lead a discussion with Kendi's book. Thanks for sharing that. We can share that as part of our follow-up to this call. These are some really good resources. Thank you for the people who shared these resources. For a person, thanks for in mentioning that the Sunday 10 a.m. call conflicts with church services for some. And is there a way to catch up with what happens at the meetings? I do share, and I say I, but there's a lot of people who come together to make the anti-racist work group happen every Sunday. We share resources every week ahead of the meeting, and then we talk about them in the meeting. So I do get messages from people who say like, oh, I can never make it, but I'm still able to read the articles they shared or watch the videos. So I guess like that's kind of a good way to follow along. So that is available to everyone at the time each week. Can you say more about individual work versus collective work and goals? Thanks for asking that question, Gail. When we started the anti-racist work group, some people said, with the Indivisible IL9, some people said, well, how is this work? What are we working on? And really, this group is about working on ourselves and understanding from the most basic, realizing that master bedroom is like got racist roots, to sort of navigating when we see racism in our lives, that the more we can bake that into ourselves to be comfortable understanding that we're a product of a racist society, that if someone calls me racist, I'm not upset about that. And then to continue working systemically, this is indivisible. We work on policies, we work on candidates. And so then when we apply the changes that we've made inside of ourselves to our work, that's when we can make real systemic changes. Some of the acts that are going through Congress right now, we know have anti-racism baked into them. Some things that we want to see change, we know that's in there. And so working on ourselves and also working to change the system by changing ourselves. It's cyclical. So, yeah, I guess us, I think it's 8:30. I'm gonna just, I appreciate all of these. I see a lot of resources in here and I really appreciate that, but it is 8:30 and we've answered some questions here. I want to encourage everyone to join us. Kim, who is my co-collaborator on this call, every Saturday at noon runs the Social Justice Alliance, which is a part of the Indivisible Illinois Coalition, works on educating voters and advocating policies that directly impact underserved communities. So if that is your interest, certainly check out what the SJA is doing. And as I've mentioned, the anti-racist work group that meets on Sundays with Indivisible IL9. In that group, we have a little bit of a schedule. Every second Sunday is Abolition Sunday. So that's this coming Sunday. We're going to have Alderman Matt Martin on the call. We're going to be talking about abolitionists, how we can enact abolitionist policies. And then next week is, we also have a book group. Every third Sunday is our book group. And this month we're reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. And you can get more information about both of those groups at indivisible.illinois.org. And let's see, action items before we meet again. So we'll see you again in 6 weeks. You're gonna fill out the form, which is like a real vague sentence right there, but we're gonna be sending everyone a form. And to the question of individual change versus systemic change, the form is gonna have questions at the top about your own personal anti-racist journey. And then the second part of the form is about hurdles that you face in your organization, enacting REI policies or centering REI work in your organization. And I say organization, but I really want to say that this includes any groups that you're a part of. We want to do this work on every level. So if it's in your family or your neighborhood group, or your indivisible group, there's some questions about that. You can join the meeting, the Indivisible IL9 Anti-Racist Work Group with me any Sunday at 10 a.m. I would love to see you there. We did a webinar today because we have many people on the call. It's very hard to have individual interactions with so many people on this call. So that is a good small group to join and reach out to us there. And you can talk to us. Here is again our email address, rei@indivisible.il.com. We would love to hear from you, just anything that you wanted to continue the conversation about. We've done a lot today. So we're gonna end with this slide. And also I am to remind you that this is a weekly call that you are on right now with the Indivisible Illinois Community Collaborative. And next week, this call will be led by Indivisible Rural Illinois Group with special guests, Tammy Duckworth and Susanna Mendoza. And so join us for that group. And then here's a quote from Elie Wiesel: "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Thank you all for spending this time with us on a Wednesday night. We appreciate it.